Man, those Baylor Bears are starting to hit the transfer portal pretty hard, aren't they? In a good way. Yeah. The Bears are reloading their roster one by one, and it was a heck of a start to the week. First off, Joe Klanderman is beginning to cook. Like, he is bringing in defensive players from Kansas State, guys that have already been developing under him, which is so crucial, even for those guys who don't have a ton of experience yet and are coming to Waco. That is something I want to talk about later on in the week, because what we got at the beginning of the week on this Monday was sexy portal picks. And by that, I mean skill position guys on the offense, right? Two receivers, namely, are the ones that are making the waves for Baylor. First one, Dre'lon Miller from Colorado, a guy who already has Big 12 experience and a guy who Baylor has been on the case of very early on since very early on in the process. Now, these two guys I'm talking about today, you're going to hear the stats and you're going to be like, huh, why are we bragging about this? Why are we flexing this? You got to stick with me here. Neither of these guys have stats that are going to jump off the page. In fact, like, if you were one of the ones who are like, oh, why does Baylor even want DJ Lagway? Look how many picks he threw. Like, if DJ Lagway is not good enough a player for you to come to this Baylor team, then your expectations are probably already too high for a 5-7 team. What you got on Monday were two good pickups at the wide receiver position. Not just like, cool, like good potential in pickups. Dre'lon Miller is the first one. This is a guy who still has a couple of years of eligibility left. He's a former top 100 recruit in the class of 24. So not that long ago, right? And was going to this hyped up Deion Sanders Colorado program. Was a top 20 wide receiver in the country coming out of high school, out of Silsbee High School, by the way. So getting back to Texas. And he had what you could call like a breakout freshman year for a true freshman on a team with the Heisman Trophy winner at the same position. He had 32 catches, under 300 yards, but 3 touchdowns as a true freshman coming from Silsbee, Texas to the Big 12. It's not bad, man. Not bad at all. Now, those numbers did dip in 2025. Everyone's numbers dipped in 2025 at Colorado. Like, that was a horrible team. As bad as Baylor was, Colorado was even worse. So the numbers dip, only 20 receptions, held under 160 yards for the season. But what's really interesting about Dre'lon Miller is he took on an extra role for this bad team, because not only was he playing receiver, but he was also coming out of the backfield as well. Now, again, was he spectacular at either this year? Not really, but who would be for that Colorado team? 3 yards a carry out of the backfield, a touchdown out of the backfield. But what I am really intrigued by is the idea of having a pass-catching back at Baylor. Because I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about all the things we haven't had since 2021. Mainly pass rush, sack artists, those kind of guys. Dependable offensive line, that hasn't been since 2022. But when you think about it, we have not had at Baylor like a third down, change of pace, pass-catching back since 2021. I think Treston Ebner is the last of that bunch. And, he was obviously more of a runner than a pass catcher, but he could do both. And before that, you're thinking 2019, JaMychal Hasty was kind of a sneaky good pass catcher his last year at Baylor, if I'm remembering it correctly. But you haven't had that in a couple of years. And that sounds like something that Jake Spavital would love to have in this offense. And if you're bringing in a quarterback like DJ Lagway, who led the Power 4 in interceptions, as I'll say for the millionth time, it's nice to have a pretty good check down option. Someone who can play receiver and running back and can be a threat in both positions. You have to respect that he can do either, that he can go out in a pattern on a play action fake. You know what I mean? So that is an interesting wrinkle for this Baylor team to add. And everyone from, some Baylor people to Colorado people rave about Dre'lon Miller. Like, I was kind of surprised after looking at the stats what people had to say. And one that I know Baylor fans take really seriously is Grayson Grundhafer, the lead recruiting analyst at Sikkim 365. He was on Matt Mosley's show yesterday, and he was raving about Dre'lon Miller and the fit that he can be in this offense. And it certainly seems like a kind of Swiss Army knife kind of wrinkle that they have not had in the last few years. A safety blanket they have not had. They've had good running back play. When I say change of pace, obviously Dawson Pendergrass fits that mold. Playing alongside someone like a Bryson Washington. But I'm talking about a threat to catch it out of the backfield. I think Dre'lon Miller, you're going to see in all kinds of formations in different positions for Baylor. I think he is going to be a weapon. I think if he were a high school player right now, he wouldn't be listed as a receiver or a running back. He'd be listed as ATH, baby. Athlete. 3-syllable athlete. So that's the first pickup of the day. The second one is a quite interesting one, if I may say so myself, and that is Hardley Gilmore out of Kentucky. Interesting situation. Hardley Gilmore committed on Thursday to Louisville, and on Monday, he's committing to Baylor. That's kind of odd. Maybe he's just in such high demand. Well, 34 catches in 2 years, it's probably not a demand thing. 34 catches and 2 touchdowns over 2 seasons, although quite a big jump from 24 to 25. No, that wasn't it. Because in the time that right after Hardley Gilmore committed to Louisville, the Cards added 2 more receivers. And so he said, what the heck? Maybe there was something promised to him. Maybe he thought there was something promised to him. But 3 days later, he commits to Baylor and talks about how good a fit that is. Really? Wasn't a fit a couple days ago. Dre'lon Miller was up from the beginning on Baylor's list and looking at Baylor and visiting A&M and turning them down to go to Baylor. Hardley Gilmore saw some competition at his position and said, I got to go somewhere else. So as much as I'd love to go in depth about Hardley Gilmore, I'm wondering if that's a waste of our time. Because Baylor needs plenty of receivers, more than just 1 or 2. So if they go out and get 2 more guys, is this kid going to stick around? That becomes the big question. But 2 big takeaways from me when it comes to adding receivers. I've talked about it a bunch in the portal, and the kind of Joey McGuire method is what I'm calling it. Because I think he makes a great point when he says Tech is not looking for strictly potential guys in the portal. They're not looking for backups. If they're backups with you, they're backups with us. We want to go out and get starters in the portal. And both these guys are starters for Baylor, right? But they're not stars at their other stops. You know what I mean? But, and it's the only position group that I'm like, you know what? I'll take the chance, is wide receiver. Because Dallas Baker has done an amazing job identifying talent there and developing talent there. It's not something we say about any other position group at Baylor in the Dave Aranda era. But they've done a great job identifying talent at wide receiver, whether it's guys who didn't get enough shine or guys who are making the step up from a lower level in power, or not in power 4, but in FBS. Ashton Hawkins was the first one that comes to mind from Texas State. He made the adjustment pretty well as your 3rd leading receiver in 2024. How about his carbon copy, Cole Wilson? He's a pretty productive player in 2025. More to come from him. We'll see. The other ones, Kobe Prentice, a guy who hadn't gotten much shine in a couple of years, 2 seasons at Alabama. I know it didn't quite end well this season, but he was a threat. He was a real threat. especially a touchdown threat at Baylor. So I do trust Alice Baker's instinct when it comes to that as well. And the other thing here that I think is really telling is, Hardley Gilmore was committed somewhere else a few days ago, 2 days ago, flipped his commitment to get to Baylor. Dre'lon Miller was being, schmoozed up by Mike Elko at A&M, a team that just made the college football playoff a couple of days ago. That was happening. And they commit on Monday. You think those guys are committing to play and catch passes from Nate Bennett? Or do you think they're coming to play here because they know that DJ Lagway is coming to play quarterback? Let's just do some critical thinking there, shall we? And link it to the fact that RG3 was saying the other day, hey, DJ's going to stick with this commitment. He's recruiting players already. That all makes sense, man. Like, I'm not saying that DJ Lagway is like this immediate pull and it's like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to win the Heisman. But Dre'lon Miller is probably sitting there thinking, I could kind of serve as a backup reserve guy this year for A&M, be a starter next year, or 27, I should say, and be a real impact player, and play for Marcel Reed, who is better than DJ Lagway. Or I can go play for a good quarterback with DJ Lagway and start balling out immediately. I'm thinking that's probably the way these guys are thinking. So that, to me, is another positive sign for DJ Lagway and Baylor. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We, of course, come at you every weekday, drop it in the morning on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts as well. Thank you to your everydayers especially, but thank you guys for making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you tomorrow going through some more portal stuff on the next episode of your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.